The Chinle Formation, dating to the late Triassic, represents a period of dramatic environmental change in what is now the southwestern United States. At the time, this region lay near the equator and experienced a warm, humid climate transitioning toward aridity. Extensive river systems, lakes and floodplains dominated the landscape, depositing vast layers of mudstone, sandstone and conglomerate. Seasonal monsoons caused periodic flooding, shaping a dynamic and shifting environment. Lush vegetation, including ferns, horsetails, and coniferous trees, flourished along riverbanks, supporting a diverse ecosystem. Giant amphibians and early dinosaurs roamed the wetlands, while phytosaurs, large crocodile-like reptiles, inhabited the waterways. Volcanic activity in distant regions contributed to periodic ashfall, preserving fossils and influencing soil composition. Over time, increasing aridity led to the formation of red and purple mudstones, characteristic of the Chinle Formation's striking coloration. This geological unit is best known for its fossilized wood, notably in the Petrified Forest National Park. Today, it provides crucial insights into the Triassic paleoclimate, landscapes, and evolving life forms. The Chinle Formation, a late Triassic geological unit spanning much of the southwestern United States, preserves a rich and diverse paleobotanical record. Though plant megafossils are found in only a few sites with ideal preservation conditions, these fossil beds offer invaluable insight into the region's ancient flora and climate. Among the most significant fossil sites is Fort Wingate, New Mexico, where the plant-rich deposits, traditionally assigned to the Monitor Butte member, are now placed within the Blue Water Creek Formation, a subunit of the Chinle Formation formally defined in 1989. Some plant fossils from Fort Wingate originate from the Lake Ceniza beds, a localized patch of gray mudstone corresponding to an ancient lake environment. Another key locality for plant fossils is Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona. While petrified wood is scattered throughout the park's stratigraphy, other plant fossils are mainly found in greenish mudstone layers near the newspaper rock sandstone bed in the Blue Mesa member. The Chinle Formation's flora is dominated by conifers, which range from towering trees like Araucarioxylon and Pageophyllum to smaller shrubby forms such as Palurdia. Cycads and Benedictalians were widespread, forming an essential component of the landscape. Ferns, including Cladophlebes, Phlebopterus, Clathropterus, and Synepterus, exhibited diverse growth habits, from low shrubs to tree ferns with palm-like fronds. Sphenophytes were abundant despite their relatively low diversity, with some neocalamite specimens reaching heights of up to 6 meters. The flora also included rare seed ferns, ginkgophytes, and small lycopods. Additionally, unusual low-growing gymnosperms such as Samigillia, Dichelia, and Dinophyton contributed to the unique botanical diversity. The composition of the Chinle flora shifted in response to climatic changes over time. The lower parts of the formation, such as the Shinarump conglomerate, are characterized by a dominance of eoginkgoites alongside early representatives of Phlebopterus, equisetites, and conifer species. Subsequent units, including the Blue Mesa member, Monitor Butte member, and Blue Water Creek Formation, exhibit much greater floral diversity, reflecting a more humid climate. This phase saw the prominence of Dinophyton, a common but enigmatic shrubby gymnosperm. However, plant fossils become scarce in the Upper Chinle Formation, suggesting a transition to drier conditions. In these later layers, the most frequently encountered plant remains belong to Samigillia, an endemic of southwestern North America, accompanied by conifers and horsetails. The Chinle Formation's fossil flora offers crucial evidence of late Triassic ecosystems, highlighting the region's climatic shifts and the evolution of plant communities over millions of years. This botanical record, alongside the formation's rich vertebrate fossil assemblages, provides a comprehensive picture of a dynamic and ever-changing prehistoric environment. The Chinle Formation preserves an astonishing wealth of fossils, offering a window into a long-lost ecosystem teeming with diverse life, from towering conifers and giant ferns to early dinosaurs and strange reptilian predators that once roamed its ancient floodplains. Lonchidion remains are common throughout the Carnian microvertebrate sites of the American Southwest. These sharks spawned in freshwater environments and are really small animals. Species found in Arizona is one of the biggest found. Known from over a dozen species found worldwide spanning the Devonian to Triassic, making Phoebodus one of the oldest known total group Elasmobranch. Most species are only known from their isolated tricuspid teeth. They are estimated to have been 70 centimeters in total length in life, which shows that it had a slender body superficially similar to that of the living frilled shark. The teeth of Phoebodus and frilled sharks are also morphologically similar and are designed for grasping prey. The presence of aquatic animal fossils in the Chinle Formation, despite its predominantly terrestrial ecosystem, is likely due to the existence of rivers, lakes, and floodplains that occasionally connected to marine or brackish environments, allowing for the transport of marine organisms or the presence of euryhaline species capable of surviving in both freshwater and marine conditions. Hemicalypterus belonged to the family Dipedidae, and like other members of its family, it was a deep-bodied fish with a covering of thick ganoid scales. It differed from other Dipediids in lacking scales on the posterior part of the body, and in possessing unusual, multicuspid teeth. These teeth were similar to those of modern-day herbivorous fish, which indicates that Hemicalypterus may have been an herbivore as well. Fossils of Lasalichthys suggest it inhabited freshwater environments such as rivers and lakes, coexisting with early amphibians and reptiles. Likely covered in ganoid scales, it may have been a small predator or omnivore, feeding on aquatic invertebrates. Saurichthys is classically interpreted as an ambush predator, similar modern gars and needlefish. It is suggested that it first approached its prey and then suddenly accelerated towards it. Some species may have lived as subsurface cruisers. Specimens showing half-swallowed conspecific individuals suggest that cannibalism was relatively common in Saurichthys. Early Triassic species had a more elongated post-orbital skull region and denser scale coverage compared to later species. By the late Triassic, marine species evolved a shorter post-orbital skull and reduced scales, both in number and size. However, this trend resulted from parallel evolution rather than a single evolutionary lineage. In contrast, late Triassic freshwater species retained primitive traits, suggesting that freshwater environments acted as refugia for these ancestral features. Arganodus toothplates are the most common fossil in the formation from a non-tetrapod. They are evenly distributed across strata, although some individual localities have very high concentrations. It was probably similar to modern lungfish, and lived in underwater burrows during dry periods until monsoons occurred. Chinlea seems to have been on the slightly gracile side of the family when compared to other coelacanth genera, but still retained the characteristic deep body and strong lobe fins of its relatives. The mouth was also filled with large sharp teeth that would have had an easy time penetrating the bodies of prey animals, such as small fish. The discovery of Funcus vermis provides a strong link between Sicilian and other lissamphibians, as well as extinct disaurophoid temnospondylus. The hunting style of Anaschisma involved lying at the bottom of a shallow swamp, waiting for a fish, crustacean, smaller amphibian, or even a young phytosaur to wander by. When it spotted prey, it used its huge jaws to engulf and consume them. First, they had lateral lines formed by the sensory sulci. These are useful for detecting changes in water pressure made by the swimming motions of nearby organisms. They would not move quickly or efficiently on land, although they may have done it to find another water pool with more food or other resource. Chinlestegophis seems to have been part of the stereospondal branch of the temnospondyls, and an unexpected side effect of adding Sicilian into this group is that many temnospondyls could now potentially also be classified as true members of Lissamphibia. The formation has yielded several amniote fossils with assigned species names but uncertain phylogenetic relationships, highlighting the complex evolutionary transitions of the late Triassic. These enigmatic taxa reflect a time of rapid diversification, where early dinosaurs, pseudosuchians, and various stem group reptiles coexisted, making this formation a key phylogenetic crossroads in amniote evolution. In 1923, Charles Camp discovered a peculiar late Triassic skull in Arizona, but the fossil disintegrated during extraction, leaving only fragmentary remains with unusual bony knobs. Rediscovered decades later, Acallosuchus was initially classified as a Proterocampsid, but later studies questioned this assignment, comparing it to Doswellia instead. Due to the poor preservation and lack of definitive features, it remains an indeterminate diapsid, with its true identity still unknown. Skybalonyx is only known from numerous specimens of the enlarged claw on its second finger, characteristic of other derived Drepanosaurid. However, it is unique compared to its relatives because its enlarged claw is wider than it is tall, and it is not as deep. Furthermore, the paired articular condyles of the ungual of this taxon remain distinct, unlike later Drepanosaurids that often possess confluent articular condyles. Functional analyses of its claws indicates that Skybalonyx used its large claw for digging underground, perhaps even for burrowing. This contrasts with the inferred lifestyle of other Drepanosaurids, which were arboreal. The very small size of the Whitakersaurus fossil suggests that it may have been a juvenile, although the characteristic hatchling dentition that would normally be found here is only present for the last two teeth. It is significant because, as well as being the most complete rhynchocephalian, it has many primitive features indicating it is a relatively basal sphenodont, but also a few more derived features. This indicates that primitive and derived lineages of rhynchocephalian radiated across the world before Whitakersaurus evolved, possibly showing an early radiative event. Dolabrosaurus was a small reptile, also belonging to the enigmatic Drepanosauridae, a group known for their unusual, chameleon-like adaptations. Its name, meaning hatchet lizard, refers to the distinctive shape of its limb bones, which suggest it was an adept climber, possibly living in trees. Like other drepanosaurs, it likely had a prehensile tail and specialized forelimbs, indicating an arboreal lifestyle in the humid forests of the Triassic period. Measuring around 50 centimeters long, the enormous hand claws of Ancistronychus were unusual compared to its close relatives, with a distinctly wide and hooked shovel-like shape. Along with Skybalonyx, and the weird burly arms of Drepanosaurus, this suggests that instead of tree climbing, some Drepanosaurs were instead much more specialized for digging. They may have been Triassic equivalents to modern pangolins, using their enlarged claws to excavate burrows and rip their way into insect nests. Drepanosaurus is hypothesized to have been an insectivore, using the claws on the second digits to lift bark and dig into crevices and grooves on trees to find insects. It has been suggested that Drepanosaurus was also a digging animal, and could use the clawed tail as a tool for unearthing insects. However, it is not thought that Drepanosaurus's tail was flexible enough to be used for digging, especially since many characteristics point to an arboreal lifestyle. Being only 50 centimeters in length, it likely spent its time in trees using its clawed hands and feet to climb from branch to branch, as well as its prehensile tail, much like a chameleon. The claw on the tip of the tail may have also been used to grip branches. The binocular eyes and enlarged brain of Avicranium are likely adaptations to an arboreal lifestyle, as such a lifestyle requires advanced sensory processing, such as depth perception and three-dimensional navigation. It is very likely that these features convergently evolved with those of pterosaurs and modern birds, which would require similar sensory processing during flight. An arboreal lifestyle has been previously proposed for other members of the Drepanosauromorph lineage. Placerias was one of the largest herbivores of the late Triassic, weighing between 800 and 1,000 kilograms and reaching a skull length of 70 centimeters. As a member of the Dicynodontia, it was closely related to Aschigualastia and shared a similar robust, barrel-shaped body. Its strong legs and powerful neck suggest it was a semi-aquatic grazer, likely spending much of the wet season in water, much like modern hippopotamuses, feeding on riverside vegetation. Placerias possessed a beak-like structure for slicing through tough plant material, along with two short tusks that likely served both defensive and social functions. Fossil evidence indicates sexual dimorphism, with some individuals having significantly longer tusks, suggesting that these were likely males, possibly using them for dominance displays or combat. As one of the last large dicynodonts before their extinction, Placerias represents an important transitional form in the evolutionary history of synapsids before the rise of dinosaurs as dominant terrestrial herbivores. Archosaurs are a group of reptiles that include crocodiles, pterosaurs, birds and dinosaurs, characterized by specific skull and skeletal features. They became the dominant group in the Chinle formation due to their evolutionary adaptations, including advanced locomotion and efficient predation strategies, which allowed them to thrive in the changing ecosystems of the late Triassic. Crosbysaurus was originally identified as an ornithischian dinosaur by Andrew Heckert when it was first described in 2004. Further work has shown that it is likely an archosauromorph based on the features of its teeth, and it may belong to archosauriforms. The taxon is likely valid as it differs from other genera from the same region known from teeth like Revueltosaurus. Trilophosaurus is a lizard-like trilophosaurid allocodosaur measuring up to 2.5 meters long. Its unique teeth were broad and leaf-shaped, suggesting it was an herbivore that fed on tough plant material, possibly including ferns and cycad. With its long body, relatively small head, and robust limbs, Trilophosaurus was likely a slow-moving, terrestrial animal that lived in the lush, wet environments of the Triassic period. Puercosuchus is known mainly from two bone beds in the Blue Mesa member of the Chinle Formation, preserving the mixed remains of multiple individuals in each one representing almost the entire skeleton. It is a member of the Azendosauridae, a clade of Triassic reptiles that was initially recognized by adaptations for herbivory. However, Puercosuchus retained the carnivorous diet and body form ancestral to Archosauromorph. It had a long and shallow snout with sharp, blade-like teeth similar to those of carnivorous dinosaurs. The pointed teeth, long snout, and upward-pointing eyes of Doswellia are support for the idea that it was an aquatic carnivore. In addition, its relatively compact osteoderms are also evidence for an aquatic lifestyle. However, it may not necessarily have been strictly aquatic, as these features are also found in animals such as Puercosuchus, a phytosaur which is known to have preyed on terrestrial reptiles. The neck was long and flexible, although also heavily armored, so it was likely incapable of bending above the horizontal, instead probably being used more for downwards and lateral movement. Vancleavea is a unique reptile genus with a long body, short limbs and a robust, dense skull, suggesting an aquatic lifestyle similar to modern semi-aquatic reptiles. Its thick bones, enlarged neural spines in the tail, and upward-facing nostrils indicate it was well adapted for swimming, while still returning to land for rest and reproduction. With large teeth suited for tough prey and protective osteoderms, Vancleavea likely preyed on arthropods, mollusks and scaled fish, and its hip structure shows similarities to Drepanosaurs, though the exact evolutionary relationship remains uncertain. Kwanasaurus was the northernmost and youngest silesaurid found in North America, with short, leaf-shaped teeth adapted for an herbivorous diet. Its dietary evolution represents the culmination of a trend in silesauridae, starting with carnivory in Lasalichthys and progressing through omnivory in Silesaurus, ultimately leading to specialized herbivory in species like Kwanasaurus. The absence of herbivorous dinosaurs in the Chinle Formation may have allowed non-dinosaur herbivores to fill ecological niches, reflecting a key aspect of Triassic herbivore diversification. Eucoelophysis was initially named upon the basis of a proposed similarity to coelophysid dinosaurs like Coelophysis, hence the name Eucoelophysis. However, a later study by Nesbitt and Parker revealed that Eucoelophysis is not a true dinosaur like Coelophysis, but rather a more primitive dinosauriform similar to Kwanasaurus. Tawa was a primitive, bipedal theropod dinosaur characterized by long femurs relative to its lower leg bones and a kink between the maxilla and premaxilli, which may have created a notch in its upper jaw similar to Dilophosaurus. Notably, Tawa possessed air sacs in its neck vertebrae, resembling the avian respiratory system found in modern birds, suggesting that such a system may have evolved in early Triassic dinosaurs. This feature, along with indications of endothermic metabolism, provides further evidence that birds directly evolved from dinosaurs and that warm-bloodedness and advanced respiratory systems were present in late Triassic theropod. Camposaurus is a small, carnivorous, theropod dinosaur. Its approximate length and weight cannot be reliably estimated because of the sparse material that is known from this genus. Like other coelophysids, it has fused tibiotarsals and fibulotarsals. Unlike its relatives, the area of the tibia that fits with the fibula has a distinct ridge at the back. Another unique feature is the lack of a large medial condyle on the astragalus. Coelophysis baueri was a small, fast, and agile theropod dinosaur. Known for its slender build, it had a long, narrow skull with sharp, serrated teeth, and a long, lightweight body built for speed, Reaching lengths of up to 3 meters, it likely occupied a carnivorous niche, preying on small vertebrates, insects, and possibly scavenging, making it an opportunistic predator within its ecosystem. Its swan-like posture with a stiffened tail helped maintain balance during high-speed pursuit. Phylogenetically, Coelophysis is one of the earliest known Saurischian theropods and is closely related to the Coelophysidae family, placing it among the basal members of the dinosaur lineage that eventually led to later, more advanced theropod. This dinosaur's importance in the evolutionary tree lies in its early development of characteristics like a hollow, lightweight skeleton, suggesting bipedalism, and its potential role as an early endothermic organism, a trait later seen in modern birds. Chindesaurus's classification is debated, and various papers have had different conclusions on its affinities. Its fossils were originally believed to belong to prosauropods, but its original description and numerous subsequent papers argued that it was a heterosaur. A 2019 redescription of its holotype considered Chindesaurus to be a theropod closely related to Tawa. It was a bipedal carnivore, approximately as large as a wolf. Drepanosaurus is notable for its short, deep skull with large teeth, a rounded orbit, and a relatively small antorbital fenestra. Based on the proportions of related theropods, it is estimated to have been around 1.5 meters long. Others estimate that it was at most 2 meters long with a weight around that of a beaver. These estimates are almost entirely conjectural, as no postcranial fossils are preserved beyond a few vertebrae. The proportionately large orbit, the short snout, and the apparent lack of fusion between the bones of the braincase suggest that the holotype specimen may be a juvenile. Dromaeosaurus is a genus of small dinosauromorph. Since being first described in 2007, the recovery and study of Dromaeosaurus fossils in the southwest of the United States has revealed an interesting discovery. Though only known from the partial remains of a few individuals, these fossils have been found in locations that also contain the fossil bones of early theropod dinosaurs. What this shows us is that the dinosauromorphs, which were the precursors to the true dinosaurs, did not disappear quickly, and for some time lived amongst the first dinosaurs. Suchians, the ancestors of modern crocodiles, were the dominant animals in the Chinle Formation due to their advanced predatory adaptations, including powerful jaws and aquatic capabilities, which allowed them to thrive in the swampy and even terrestrial environments of the late Triassic. Scythosaurus was originally described from a restored skull and very few fragmentary postcranial bones as a probable ornithomimosaur, or at least a very ornithomimosaur-like early theropod. The true pseudosuchian affinities of Scythosaurus were only recognized after the discovery of effigia linked the skull of Scythosaurus with similar papasauroid skeletal remains found in the same quarry. Desmatosuchus was a heavily armored etosaur, an herbivorous archosaur more closely related to crocodilians than dinosaurs. It measured around 4.5 meters in length and was covered in thick bony osteoderms, with large spines along its neck and shoulders for protection. Its skull featured a toothless, upturned snout and a lower jaw likely covered in a keratinous beak, possibly used for digging up roots and tubers. Some studies suggest its flexible snout may have supported a pig-like nose, allowing it to forage in soil more efficiently. While primarily herbivorous, similarities to modern armadillos suggest it may have also eaten insect grubs, making it a potential opportunistic omnivore. Rioarabasuchus is a late-surviving paratypothoracine typothoracine edosaur. Originally referred to Desmatosuchus, but later reinterpreted as a relative of Paratypothorax based on a phylogenetic analysis performed on the remains by Parker in 2003. The naming of Rioarabasuchus in 2006 led to controversy, as it was considered a case of intellectual theft and a violation of zoological naming ethics, sparking the Eatagate scandal, which prompted an investigation by the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology in 2008. Typothorax was a heavily armored edosaur with erect hindlimbs, allowing for a more efficient gait, but its nearly equal femur and lower leg lengths suggest it was a slow-moving animal. Its shortened forelimbs were held in a sprawling position, and several features, including a short, broad hand and a prominent delta pectoral crest, indicate it had some ability to dig, though it was not fully adapted for a fossorial lifestyle. The presence of an upturned snout suggests that Typothorax may have used its head to root through soil in search of food, possibly feeding on roots, tubers or small invertebrates. Hesperosuchus was a terrestrial animal, where its speed and ability to run fast is the most advantageous as a fitness trait. Northern Arizona's landscape during the Triassic period was surrounded by numerous bodies of water like lakes and streams. This supports that Hesperosuchus likely lived close to water, although being a full-on land-dwelling animal. The phytosaur teeth and small stereospondyle vertebrae found near Hesperosuchus support the presence of lakes or streams crossing a flood plain. To begin with, one of the most interesting facts about Revueltosaurus is that the genus was first believed to have represented a very primitive ornithischian dinosaur. This is because when Revueltosaurus was first discovered, the genus was only described by teeth, and these were very similar to the ornithischian dinosaurs. It was not until skull and post-cranial skeletal remains were discovered that Revueltosaurus was realized to actually be a pseudosuchian, and not a dinosaur. The teeth of Revueltosaurus are serrated in a fashion similar to the herbivorous ornithischian dinosaurs, and so it is reasonable to assume that it also had a herbivorous preference. Like theropod dinosaurs, Papasaurus was an obligate biped, meaning that it walked on 2 legs rather than 4. However, as a pseudosuchian, it is more closely related to living crocodilians than to dinosaurs. Although Papasaurus and early dinosaurs were both bipedal, the method of locomotion evolved independently in each group. The independent origins are shown through several differences in the skeletons of Papasaurus and dinosaurs. Unlike dinosaurs, it has the characteristic crurotarsal ankle of pseudosuchians, usually associated with quadrupedal locomotion. Papasaurus also has a pillar erect stance in which the acetabulum or hip socket faces downward and is positioned directly over the head of the femur. In contrast, dinosaurs have buttress erect hip structures in which the acetabulum faces laterally and the head of the femur is angled to fit into it. Puercosuchus was a large, terrestrial rauisuchian and one of the apex predators of its ecosystem, closely related to modern crocodilians but adapted for a fully land-dwelling lifestyle. It had a deep, narrow skull filled with serrated teeth, powerful jaws, and forward-facing eyes, giving it excellent binocular vision for hunting. Unlike most reptiles of its time, Puercosuchus had an upright stance, with its limbs positioned directly beneath its body, allowing for greater speed and endurance. Fossil evidence suggests it may have been facultatively bipedal, occasionally running on its hind legs while using its front limbs for support when walking slowly. Its grasping forelimbs and strong claws may have helped subdue struggling prey, which likely included smaller reptiles and early dinosaurs. Osteoderms lined its back, offering some protection from other predators or intraspecific combat. As a top predator, Puercosuchus played a crucial role in regulating late Triassic ecosystems, filling a niche that would later be dominated by large theropod dinosaurs. Its extinction at the end of the Triassic coincided with the rise of theropods, marking a shift in dominance among terrestrial predators. Saurichthys was also a large Rouasuchian archosaur, measuring up to 7 meters in length, and was one of the dominant predators of the late Triassic. It possessed a deep, laterally compressed skull with serrated teeth, suggesting it was a macropredator capable of tackling large prey like Dicynodonts and Aetosaur. Unlike sprawling reptiles, Saurichthys had an erect limb posture, an adaptation that allowed for more efficient movement and greater endurance while hunting. Its vertebrae had deep excavations, possibly to reduce weight and support a more agile build despite its size. Fossils show evidence of osteoderms along its back, which may have offered protection from rival predators or intraspecific combat. As one of the last and largest Rouasuchians, Saurichthys represents the peak of predinosaurian archosaur predators before their decline at the end of the Triassic. Vivaron is known only from 3 jaw bones, associated skull fragments, and referred hip bones. Comparisons with related taxa allow for an estimated length of between 4 and 5.5 meters, similar in size and appearance to other Rouasuchids. It can be distinguished from other Rouasuchids by the presence of 2 prongs on the posterior portion of the maxilla where it articulates with the jugal. Examination of Ophidia's jaws suggest it was a specialist herbivore that filled a niche as a browser feeding on softer plant material, due to its weak jaws and sharp beak. It was previously suggested that it pecked for food like ostriches or other ratites, but biomechanical studies have estimated that its skull could not withstand such forces. Its similarity to ornithomimids represents a case of extreme convergent evolution. The 2-meter holotype fossil was collected by Edwin Colbert in 1947. At this time Colbert led an excavation to collect blocks of rock from the Whitaker quarry of Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. Phytosaurs were a group of semi-aquatic, crocodile-like archosauriforms that thrived during the late Triassic, exhibiting convergent evolution with modern crocodilians by developing elongated snouts, robust bodies and a similar predatory lifestyle, despite being only distantly related. Paleorhinus has had a complicated taxonomic history involving frequent synonymy between diagnostic and undiagnostic material. This is mainly due to the fact that it is a quintessential basal phytosaur, mostly distinguished by a lack of specializations rather than unique trait. Historically, it was common practice to lump all basal phytosaurs into only 1 or 2 genera, rendering those genera paraphyletic evolutionary grades ancestral to later phytosaurs. Leptosuchus is a genus of phytosaur that is currently known from a few species. Like other phytosaurs, they were very much like crocodiles, though they were not actually directly related to them. An exceptionally large skull once assigned as Leptosuchus gregorii has since been moved to the genus Smylosuchus, though since this time there has been fresh speculation that Smylosuchus might be synonymous with Leptosuchus. The largest known skull of Redondosaurus is about 80 centimeters long, and is very robustly formed. This alone indicates that it was a predator of large vertebrates, perhaps lurking in late Triassic waters and jumping out at other creatures as they came to the water to drink. Redondosaurus was among the last phytosaurs known to have lived, and features several adaptations that make it notably more advanced than other phytosaurs. Like its relatives, Macaraprosopus had a long, narrow snout lined with sharp teeth, adapted for catching fish and other small aquatic prey, though some species may have been opportunistic hunters. Unlike true crocodilians, its nostrils were positioned far back on the skull, near the eyes, allowing it to breathe while remaining mostly submerged. As an apex predator of its wetland habitat, Macaraprosopus played a crucial role in late Triassic river ecosystems, coexisting with early amphibians, large archosaurs and primitive dinosaurs. Like all phytosaurs, Smiloteuthis had the nostrils close to the top of its head. The rostral crest and nasal bulge supporting these raised nostrils was larger in Smiloteuthis than in many other phytosaurs. Its skull was extremely large, up to 155 centimeters long, although estimates for the overall length vary from 7 to 12 meters. The jaws are very short and broad and the teeth are heterodont, with large tusks at the anterior of the mouth for impaling prey and more blade-like teeth for slicing flesh closer to the back of the mouth. The tusks are mounted on a bulge at the tip of the snout present in nearly all phytosaurs. Its squamosal processes are short and deep, indicating a powerful bite. This coupled with its large size suggests that it hunted large prey such as Placerias.